The US sent 31 refurbished M1A1 Abrams main battle tanks to Ukraine, with the first of them reportedly deployed in the past year. Although claimed to be one of the best tanks in the world, their performance in the field has not lived up to that billing. Not only had the tanks been provided without some of the latest upgraded depleted uranium armor and fire control systems, it was soon evident that they were vulnerable to the warfighting innovations that have arisen on Ukraine's battlefields. As with most, if not all, currently fielded main battle tanks, they were designed to fight tank-on-tank battles, and so were given extensive frontal protection. However, the war in Ukraine has changed the nature of the threat. The ubiquitous first-person view, FPV attack drones, modern anti-tank guided weapons, ATGW, and guided artillery have all highlighted the Abrams' vulnerability to strikes from above. All but one of the tanks lost in Ukraine resulted from drone or other strikes from above and to the rear. The sole exception was hit by the main armament from a Russian T-72B3 tank. The U.S. Army's procurement of weapons and tracked combat vehicles, WTCV, Army report for 2026 includes an allocation of more than $107 million for survivability improvements to almost 400 of its M1 Abrams fleet. This includes stealth-enhancing paint, belly protection against improvised explosive devices and mines, laser attack warning receivers, and top attack protection. The bulk of the allocation, almost $92 million, will be spent on the GM1914 VPS Top Attack Protection passive armor kits, sufficient to equip around 350 tanks that comprise 4 frontline armored brigade combat teams. This is a passive add-on armor, designed to supplement overhead protection to the crew compartment and hatches from shaped charge and explosively formed projectiles, EFP, and is listed as the first step to equipping all current and future combat vehicles with the capability. The Ukrainian armed forces have attempted to increase the protection from top attack of many of the Western tanks, including the M1 Abrams, provided to them since the start of Russia 2022 full-scale invasion, fitting the tanks with cope cages, explosive reactive armor, and belly protection. This worked for some, such as the German-manufactured Leopard 1 and 2 MBT, but has done little to reduce the losses of its Abrams. Of the U.S. Army's current holdings of around 4,650 M1 Abrams main battle tanks, 2,640 are held in operational units, of which 100 have been upgraded to the latest M1A, the 2nd of September V2 and SCP V3 standards, with the balance of operational vehicles and the 2,000 or so held in storage remaining at the original M1A1 specification. The U.S. Army has committed to improving the survivability of its M1 Abrams main battle tanks, with the allocation of over $107 million in funding for new vehicle protection systems. The funds are intended to cover development and operationalization of stealth-enhancing coatings, passive armor kits, and new laser warning receivers. GM1912 VPS signature management paint is intended to be applied to over 380 vehicles, and was designed to reduce the probability of thermal detection as part of the Army's concealment, deception, and obscuration layered survivability approach, according to the latest procurement of weapons and tracked combat vehicles report. The bulk of funding, however, has been allocated to the GM1914 VPS Top Attack Protection passive armor kits, which were designed to reinforce vehicle compartments and hatches against threats from top attacks by guided missiles, drones, or loitering munitions. Sufficient kits are being procured to outfit 4 armored brigade combat teams, or approximately 350 tanks, with the funds allocated amounting to $91.7 million. Significant concerns regarding the Abrams tank's survivability have arisen since the vehicles began to be deployed for combat by the Ukrainian Army in 2024, with its vulnerability against new threats from top attack weapons having been particularly widely criticized. Although the Ukrainian Army received downgraded M1A1 variants that are less well protected, primarily due to their lack of depleted uranium armor, the majority of the Abrams tanks filmed being neutralized have been hit by guided artillery or by single-use kamikaze drones, which strike from the top where the armor thickness of Ukrainian and U.S. Army variants are the same. Thus, while U.S. Army variants are expected to be less vulnerable to frontal penetration, like the one confirmed kill by the 125mm gun of a Russian T-72B3 tank, in the large majority of engagements they would have not been more survivable. This is likely to have been a significant factor stimulating the new investments in improving armor protection levels, with a focus on top strike weapons. The Ukrainian army has itself made significant efforts to improve the armor protection levels of its Abrams tanks by commissioning the integration of explosive reactive armor after the vehicles first suffered heavy losses, although this does not appear to have significantly affected attrition rates. The U.S. Army currently deploys an estimated 2,640 Abrams tanks, of which approximately 1,500 have been brought up to the M1A the 2nd of September V2 standard, and approximately 600 more to the latest M1A the 2nd of September V3 standard. The remaining approximately 540 tanks and the approximately 2,000 more being held in storage are old Cold Battle era M1A1. The Abrams is the only tank class in the U.S. Army and has recently been delivered to the Republic of China Army, the Australian Army, and the Polish Army. Although the Abrams previously suffered significant losses to lightly armed paramilitaries when deployed both by the Iraqi Army and by the Saudi Army in the 2010, the scale of the losses faced by the Ukrainian Army in much more intensive engagements has been widely assessed by analysts to have tarnished its reputation. By late August 2024, losses were estimated at close to two-thirds of the Ukrainian fleet, at 20 of the 31 tanks. And by early June 2025, the Ukrainian army was assessed to have lost 87% of the American-sourced tanks, with 27 of the 31 vehicles destroyed or captured. Loss rates may have been significantly higher had the Russian army fielded guided top-attack anti-tank missiles, which are widely fielded by other potential adversaries such as China and North Korea. The Russian army operationalized its first missile of the kind, the Bullseye-4, after procuring it from North Korea in 2024. While the Abrams has suffered extreme losses, the Russian Army's own T-72, T-80, and T-90 tanks have also taken significant losses to drones and top-attack weapons, as have German Leopard 1 and Leopard 2 tanks, with tank industries across the world seeking to rapidly respond to the development of new anti-armor technologies.